Point F2, the sword found in the Qur'an. Concerning the sword in the Qur'an, the testimony of Islam today is that of a religion which condones violence for the sake of Allah. Though many Muslims try to deny this, they have to agree that there are ample examples of violence found not only within the Qur'an, but also exemplified within the life of the Prophet Muhammad. While in Mecca, Muhammad was surrounded by enemies, and while there, he taught his followers toleration. Okay, according to Surah 2:256, which says, "Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error." As a minor player surrounded by enemies, he did well to receive this convenient revelation, but the call for toleration changed when his power was established in Medina. Once the charter had been written, which regulated life between the various differing groups, Muhammad needed a livelihood for himself and those who had come with him from Mecca. Thus he undertook a number of quote-unquote expeditions, sending groups of his soldiers out to raid Meccan caravans in order to find booty. Wow. God ordained raids like that? I don't think so. Allah, yes. Though there was a rule in the Hijaz at the time not to fight during the holy month, Muhammad, nonetheless, sent a number of his troops to raid an unsuspecting trading caravan. This caused havoc in his own camp because a Meccan had been killed in the month in which bloodshed was forbidden. Promptly, another convenient revelation came with authorizing the attack. Read Surah 2:217. Later on, in 624 CE, after having been in Medina for 2 years, a Meccan caravan of 1,000 men was passing close to the southwest of Medina. Muhammad, with only 300 men, went out to attack it at the Battle of Badr. He defeated the Meccans and consequently received tremendous status, which helped his army grow. The Medians participated in further battles, some of which they won, the Battle of the Trenches, and others which they lost, the Battle of Uhud. In fact, Muhammad himself is known to have conducted 27 battles and planned 39 others. Give him the man the power, and look what he does with it, reverses his field. Muslims, however, continue to downplay any emphasis on violence within the Qur'an, and they emphatically insist that the Jihad, or holy war, was only a means of defense and was never used as an offensive act. Sahih Muslim III makes this point, saying the sword has not been used recklessly by the Muslims. It has been wielded purely for humane feelings. You wield the sword for humane feelings in the wider interest of humanity. Wow. In the Mishkat II, we find an explanation for Jihad. Jihad is the best method of earning both spiritual and temporal. If victory is won, there is enormous booty and a conquest of a country which cannot be equal to any other source of earnings. Well, what's the justification for that? Oh, he's got something I want. If there is defeat or death, there is an everlasting paradise and a great spiritual benefit. This sort of jihad is conditional upon pure motives, i.e. for establishing the kingdom of Allah on earth. Also in Mishkat II, we learn, with regard to jihad, that Abu Hurairah reported that the Messenger of Allah said, "To whichever village you go and settle therein, there is your share therein. And whichever village disobeys Allah and His messengers, its 1/5 is for Allah and His messenger, and the remainder is for you." So anytime you move, you can take 1/5 of the city. The claim that the Muslims acted only in self-defense is simply untrue. What were Muslims defending in North Africa or Spain, France, India, Persia, Syria, Anatolia, or the Balkans? These countries had all previous civilizations, many of which were more sophisticated than that of Islam, yet they all, outside of France, fell during the conquest of Islam in the first few hundred years, and their cultures were soon eradicated by that of Islam. Does that not evidence a rather offensive interpretation for jihad? We can understand the authority for this history when we read certain passages from the Qur'an, which itself stipulates a particularly strong use of violence. The full impact of invective against the unbeliever can be found in Surah 9:5, which says, "But when the forbidden months are past, then fight and slay those who join other gods with Allah, wherever you find them. Besiege them, seize them, lay in wait for them with every kind of ambush." Or like nature is Surah 47:4, which says, "When you encounter the unbelievers, strike off their heads until you have made a great slaughter among them." Wow, that's a peaceful religion. Similarly, Surah 9:29 states, "Make war upon those to whom the scriptures have been given as believe not in Allah, or in the last day, or who forbid not what Allah and his apostle have forbidden, until they pay tribute. And in Surah 839 we find, and fight them on until there is no more tumult or oppression, and there prevail justice and faith in Allah together and everywhere. But if they cease, verily Allah doth see all that they do. The murder of between 600 to 700 Banu Qurayza Median Jewish males by the sword and the slavery of the women give testimony to this surah, in Nell's page 117. According to the Dictionary of Islam, we read, when an infidel country is conquered by a Muslim ruler, its inhabitants are offered three alternatives: the reception of Islam, in which case the conquered become enfranchised citizens of the Muslim state; 2, the payment of Jihad tax, by which unbelievers obtain protection and become dhimmis, or provided they were not idolaters; and death by the sword to those who would not pay the Jihad tax. Some kind of internal revenue service there. Dictionary of Islam, page 243. War is sanctioned in Islam, with enormous rewards promised to those who fight for Allah, according to Surah 474. Later in verse 84, Muhammad gives himself the divine order to fight. This is the verse which is the basis for calling Islam the religion of the sword. In Surah 533, the Qur'an orders those who fight Allah and his messenger to be killed or crucified, or have their hands and feet on alternate sides cut off, or they can be expelled out of the land. In Surah 48, 16 to 17, we read that all who die fighting for the ways of the Lord, Jihad, are richly rewarded, but those who retreat are sorely punished. Now the first blood shed under Muhammad was carried out by a blind disciple named Umair, who stabbed and killed a woman named Asma while she slept suckling her baby because she had criticized Muhammad with poetic verses. Upon hearing of this, Muhammad said, behold a man that hath assisted the Lord and his prophet. Call him not blind, call him rather Umair, the seeing. Therefore, when those of us who are Christians read these surahs and see the example of the prophet himself, we find a total rejection of the previous teachings of Jesus, who calls us to live in peace and put away the sword. We then are incredulous when we hear Muslims claim that Islam is the religion of peace. The record speaks for itself, not only in the scriptures, but in their actions. For those countries who aspire to use Islamic law, statistics prove revealing. According to the 1994 State of the World Atlas, while only 5 northern countries, Western, are categorized as terror states, those involved in using assassination, disappearances, and torture, 28 of the 32 Muslim states fall into this category, except UAE, Qatar, and Mali. Furthermore, it seems that most Muslim countries today are following the example of their prophet and are involved in some sort of armed conflict. It is difficult to know where the truth lies. While the West documents and publishes its criminal activities openly, the Muslim countries say very little. Lists which delineate where each country stands in relation to murders, sex offenses, criminality include most of the Western countries. Yet only 4 Muslim countries out of the 32 have offered statistics for the number of internal murders, while only 6 out of the 32 have offered a list of sex offenses, and only 4 of the 32 have divulged their level of criminality. Therefore, until more Muslim countries are willing to come forward with statistics, it is impossible to evaluate the claim which they make that Western states have a higher degree of degradation and criminality than that of Muslim states. We do, however, know that in 1980s, of the 14 countries who were involved in ongoing general wars, 9 of them were Muslim countries, while only 1 was a non-Western Christian country. Why, we wonder, are so many Muslim countries embroiled in so many wars, many of which are against other Muslims? Muslims answer that these are not good examples because they are not authentic Muslim states. Yet, can we not say that, to the contrary, these countries do indeed follow the examples which we find so readily not only within the text of the Qur'an, but within the life of the Prophet and in the history of the first few centuries of Islam? Muhammad's life and the Qur'an, which he gave to the world, both give sufficient authority for the sword in Islam. While this may cause 20th century Western Muslim to squirm uncomfortably, it cannot be denied that there is ample precedent for violence within their scriptures and within their own history. What we choose to ask, however, is whether the witness of violence within Islam exemplifies the heart of a loving and compassionate God, one who calls himself merciful, or whether it rather exemplifies the character of 7th century Arabia with all its brutal desert tribal disputes and warfare. Compare the opposing concept of Jesus. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the others also. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. If someone forces you to go 1 kilometer, go with him 2 kilometers. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Matthew 5:38-44. So what can we say about the authority of the Qur'an? Can we say it is a divinely inspired book sent by Allah for all of humanity for all time? Can it claim supernatural as well as literary qualities, which not only place it above all other revelations, but point it to its divine origins? Much of what I have offered you here points to the fact that the Qur'an lacks in all three qualities and seems to reflect more the life and times of its supposed mediator than that of the heart of the universal God. The idolatrous tendency of Muslims towards the Qur'an, as well as the confusion of its literary makeup and the special conditions given to Muhammad, point to a book put together by one man, or as we now know, a group of much later men than the inspired piece of God's revealed word. If one were to contrast the 66 books of the Bible written over hundreds of years by at least 40 different authors with the Qur'an which came through one man, Muhammad, during his lifetime, there would be no contest as to which was the superior literature. In the final analysis, the Qur'an simply does not fit the breadth of vision, nor the literary style or structure of that found in the Old and New Testament. To go from the Bible to the Qur'an is to go from the superior to the inferior, from the authentic to the counterfeit, from God's perspective to that of an individual caught up and controlled by his own world and times, and in his own violence. I end this section with a quote from an expert on the Qur'an, Dr. Tisdall, who says, "The Qur'an breathes the air of the desert. It enables us to hear the battle cries of the Prophet's followers as they rushed to the onset. It reveals the working of Muhammad's own mind and shows the gradual declension of his character as he passed from the earnest and sincere through visionary enthusiast into the conscious impostor and open sensualist." Okay, point G. The collation or collection of the Quranic text. More on this next time.